Hi, and welcome back to MSc. In today's lesson, we're going to look at scientific laboratory variables. So in a science lab, and as part of the scientific method, understanding variables is a key piece. And we can divide these variables into three categories. The first is the independent variable, the second is the dependent variable, and the third are the control variables. The independent variable is the variable that you control and you choose the value of. To understand this a little bit better, let's go through a sample research question. And we'll keep it fairly simplistic, but it will allow us to picture and visualize what's going on, I hope, as we work through these variables. So the research question I'm proposing here is, how does the volume of water affect the time required for it to boil? The independent variable is the one that we're changing, and in this case we are changing the volume of water. That's what I get to choose, and I pick how much water I do for my tests. I would choose from a small amount in increments up to a larger amount of water. And that's how I remember the independent variable. It's because it's what I get to choose. I set the amounts of water that I'd like to do for my lab. And when we're doing the independent variable, we should only really ever have one independent variable. If we run with the idea of choosing different volumes of water, well, that would be fine, but we also then wouldn't want to choose different styles of pots to boil the water in. That would be changing two variables, and so it would no longer be a fair test of the independent variable. The dependent variable is what we're measuring in the lab. And so let's go back to this research question. In a good research question, I should be able to, as the reader, identify the independent variable, which we have already identified is the volume of water. And I should also be able to identify the dependent variable. In this case, it's the time required for the water to boil. And so the dependent variable is what we're measuring. It is this time that we're measuring. And the dependent variable will depend on your independent variable. And in a way, that's the whole crux of the whole lab, is to figure out how these two variables are interrelated. The independent variable that you're changing different values of, different volumes of water, and the dependent variable, which is what you are measuring. The last are the control variables, and these are any other factor that we want to keep constant during the lab because they could reasonably impact your results. In this case, we've said we're changing the volume of water and we're measuring the time it takes to boil. So that means anything else that could affect the time it takes for water to boil on the stove, we need to keep constant. As I mentioned earlier, the type and style of pot, we'd want to keep that the same. We'd want to have the same dimensions of pot. It wouldn't be fair to, even if it was the same company, to use a frying pan and then a large pot. Different surface areas. We'd want to use the same burner on the stove. We wouldn't want to use a small burner for some trials and a large burner for others. We also wouldn't want to use a gas stove and then a regular element. We'd want to keep them all the same. Likewise, we wouldn't want to do some outdoors on a barbecue either. So even environmental factors can play a factor in this. Room temperature, room pressure are also important things to control in many science labs. I hope that this brief rundown has been helpful to you in understanding the different variables in a science lab. Good luck with your science project. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for watching.